Work. Work. Let's work. 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 Let's work. 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 Let's work.
We're in the trenches, breaking down the defensive line, from technique and fundamentals to NFL and college football analysis. You're listening to Big Dog Trench
Work. Work.
Woo! What's up, Big Dog? This is Coach Roll at 5-Star Lineman Academy, and we in the lab with Big Dog Trench Talk. Welcome to our first episode of Big Dog Trench Talk in 2019. Big Dog, I'm telling you, I got lots to talk about. But before we get into that, I got to tell you, 2018 for Big Dog football was big. For those of you that do not know, Big Dog Trench Talk is an extension of BigDogFootball.com. A lot of the concepts and schemes that we talk about on this podcast, if you go to BigDogFootball.com, you'll see a lot of the visual aids and drills and tutorials that we actually break down there. But on this podcast, we dive deep in the conversation and we discuss and talk about what it takes to be great at the line of scrimmage. So in 2018, last year was truly a great year for Big Dog football. There have been so many emails with testimonials of defensive linemen and linebackers watching their game improve every week, as well as coaches that have seen their athletes improve at the line of scrimmage. Well, testimonials like that mean a lot to me because that's why I do what I do. That's why me and my team do what we do. We put a lot of work in to make sure that everything that we put out has the primary focus of making sure that our big dogs get better at the line of scrimmage. So to all the athletes and the coaches that have joined the Big Dog community, thank you so much for letting me know how impactful and beneficial the website has been. It's really been huge and impactful to see people subscribe every day and join the mission at BigDogFootball.com. I want to take a minute to talk about what we've done to the website and what we've added. Coaches have come to me and asking me, Coach, Big Dog, what is the best approach to training your big dogs in the offseason? How do you go about making sure that your defensive linemen have the proper training and the proper development in the offseason? What's the first thing you do? What's the second thing you do to make sure your guys are getting trained and equipped the right way? What's the proper protocol? What do you do? And so I've had a lot of those questions come up. And what I decided to do was actually put on BigDogFootball.com my training system, what I call the Optimal Defensive Line Training System. The Optimal Defensive Line Training System is a system that I use to train all of my athletes in the offseason. And what it does is it makes sure that the defensive lineman is being trained properly and orderly with this system. So there is a system that I use. There is an order that I use to make sure that the foundations of the defensive lineman or linebacker is set properly. And from there, I begin to add drills and teach them concepts that develop their game. But there is an order in which I use to ensure that my big dogs are developing properly. So the Optimal Defensive Line Training System has two programs. The first program that we teach on is the run game. The second program is the pass rush. The run program has actually 4 levels that we teach on, and the pass rush has 6 levels to it. The 4 levels that we teach on in the run game are 1, the stance, 2, the start, 3, the steps, and 4, the strike. The 6 levels in the pass rush that we teach on, which is crucial, is 1, the stance, again, which is important, 2, the start, 3, the steps, 4, the set, it's a big one, 5, the strike, and 6, the sack. Each level within these programs has an objective, and the mission within each level within these programs is to make sure that each objective is mastered. When you're talking about developing a defensive lineman in the trenches, it is important to make sure that the objective is clear between the coach and the defensive lineman, and that defensive lineman knows specifically what they are trying to master and progress. The thing that bothers me the most, if I could be honest with you, is when an athlete does not know why. I think that a great coach is a coach that is able to teach the W's and the H of the game. When I say teach on the W's or teach the W's, I'm talking about teach the who, teach the what, teach the when, the where, the why, and the how of the game. This is the perfect time to do it. This is the perfect time in January to not just train, but teach. 5-Star Lineman Academy, there are 5 pillars. The first pillar is to teach the mind. The second pillar is to train the body, mold the character, strengthen the spirit, and progress the player. But it starts with teaching. For me, a great coach is a great teacher, and a great teacher is a great coach. I think right now in the offseason for me, what really always helps my defensive linemen develop is that there's a teaching aspect to this, that we take the time to make sure that athlete knows why. That athlete knows who they are. And I'm not necessarily just talking about spiritual matters, which is also important, but I'm talking about knowing what kind of rusher they are, what kind of player they are. Often, defensive linemen try to mimic somebody else, not really knowing who they are and what kind of player they are at the line of scrimmage, or what kind of player that they will be. And so there's a lot of error there because they waste a lot of time working on a game that's not their own. And so when you, as a coach, look at the talent and the skill that a defensive player, a defensive lineman has, and you begin to say, son, you are a finesse rusher, or you are the kind of defensive lineman that will be more of a strike and attack as opposed to a read and react. This is the kind of player that you will be. You are more of an athletic defensive lineman, or you are more of a control 2-gap type of player. When you begin to look at a defensive lineman and identify his characteristics, or you begin to identify his makeup or his skill or his profile or his abilities, and then you begin to mold him to be the best he can be, there are a certain set of skills in which he has that a great defensive line coach would then build on that, as opposed to making him this copy or trying to get this defensive lineman to imitate somebody or a game that's not his own. So right now, for me, the first pillar to 5-Star Lineman Academy is to teach. This is the perfect opportunity to teach these linemen the proper priority as to how to develop and why. When you get these linemen to buy into the system, you'll begin to see a different understanding of the game, and you'll begin to see their understanding develop and grow. And that's where progress really happens. 'Cause that's what you want. You don't want these athletes to just imitate the moves. You want them to know why they're doing the moves. You want them to know how they're doing these moves. You want them to know when they should do the moves. At what point of the rush should they be doing the move, or what they should be doing prior to the rush. They need to know at what point should I be in a set position. At what point should I know what foot leverage or foot alignment I should be in prior to my point of attack? What should I do in the post attack? What should I be doing? We want our defensive linemen to be successful, not by mistake. We want them to be successful on purpose because they were tacticians at the line of scrimmage. The one thing that I like is that when I talk to a defensive end or a defensive tackle or a blitzing linebacker, and I ask him, why were you successful on that rush? That was a great rush. But what did you do that made that rush so successful and productive? And when they can tell me exactly what they did, and when they can tell me exactly the leverage they played with, and when I say leverage, I'm not just talking about they played with good body leverage, but they begin to tell me, coach, I had good hand leverage. I saw where his hands were. And so therefore I know that I had the hand leverage to do this move. I knew that I was foot to field, that I had great foot leverage. And so therefore that gave me the opportunity to do this move or to carve the corner as opposed to flipping. I didn't have to flip on this because of my foot leverage. When they can begin to tell me exactly how they were successful and it wasn't guess, or they begin to tell me that their body just instinctively did the move, that it was by habit that they did this move. Now we're talking. Now, not only do they understand what they did and they comprehend the skill they had behind what they did, but now they're doing it by habit. And that's the second star. Train the body. But you can't train the body unless you teach the mind. When you teach the mind, then you can train the body, because now and the body should now line up with the mind and knowing this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I think that's really important. And so coaches, come to me and ask me, Coach, is there really a necessity for priority? Is it really important? Is it really that serious to train a guy, in levels? That can level 4 be level 1? Can level 3 be level 2? Is there really any need for levels? Can't I just teach my guy some great hand mechanics? Can I teach them, how to do a certain move with their hands and quick swims and sweeps and long arms and stabs and things like that? Can't I just jump right to that if my guy's a little bit more advanced? Coaches, let me say this. I work with players on all levels, and I will never change my order, because on all levels, on every athlete that I've worked with, whether it be Canadian, NFL, college, Division 1, 2, 3, JUCO, high school, it did not matter. Almost all of them had one or more things that they needed to adjust with their stance. Almost all of them. I have not met one defensive lineman on any level. And that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that that's a horrible thing. I'm saying that if I skipped that, I'm saying that if I would have looked past that would have hindered their progress as a defensive lineman at the line of scrimmage. If I would not have started with that. To me, it is important. If you do not have a system or a level in which you start with the foundation. Now, for me, foundation is not hands. For me, foundation is not hands. Foundation is your feet. Your feet war and your hands fight. And if I would not have started with the proper foundation, which is their feet mechanics and their feet placement, then their development would have been misconstrued. Their development would not have properly been in place because I didn't start in the right place. To me, it's huge. It is a big deal that if you're talking about training a defensive lineman properly at the line of scrimmage, there is an order to it. There is an order in which a great coach should take to make sure that his guys are developing the right way. Now, again, I just recently had a session, with a young man, and hopefully he doesn't mind me saying this, where he was in a left-handed stance, and in this left-handed stance, he had his left foot up. He had his left hand down and his left foot up and the right foot back. So imagine this. Your left hand is down, your left foot is up, and your right foot is back. This was a strong kid. This kid played great. I watched his film. He's an athlete. He's strong as all outdoors. He's an 8th grader going to the 9th grade, and he's serious about his game. He had the right character. He's a great young man, a great kid that really wants to be great. The sad part about that was that someone taught this young man that it was right to have this left hand up as well as the left foot up in your stance. So watch this. As a result, when I watched this young man's film and I watched his highlights and I analyzed his film and I broke it down, The one thing that I saw that I'll mention here is that he did not start playing football until he got out of his stance. That is sad. That is bad. That is not what we want. Our stance should not be a formality. It should not be something I get in because I'm told to. A stance should not be something that we get in because that's the rule, at the line of scrimmage, is that you get into this stance that doesn't really benefit me from really maximizing my steps. That's false. The stance is something that we get in to help me have the most optimal explosion from that position. The stance is an advantage in which a defensive lineman has to maximize his steps. A stance is something that's going to help that defensive lineman cover more ground between him and his opposition. If there are 2 yards between the defensive lineman and the offensive lineman, a stance will help that defensive lineman cover the 1.5 yards when the offensive lineman only covers the yard. How much power are we talking about? How much momentum are we talking about when a defensive lineman can get into a optimal, powerful stance? And when that ball snaps, when that ball moves across 3 blades of turf, when 3 blades of turf is passed by that ball, that defensive lineman is moving with the ball, not on the ball, moving with the ball so powerfully that they are covering more ground than their opposition. The stance is supposed to help you do that. But when you are in the wrong stance and you have to almost fall out of your stance in about 2 steps, and then after the second step, that's when you start playing football, that is a problem. That is wrong, and that should not happen. And you'll see things like this because that athlete was not taught orderly or properly. So yes, to me, it is a big deal that if you talk about training a defensive lineman the right way in the offseason, if you're asking me at least, my answer is going to be start with their stance. And watch this. I'm going to be more detailed than that. My answer is going to be start with their feet with their stance. Don't just say, here, get in the stance. But start with where should their feet be in the stance. Help them understand that there are different kinds of stances. Your stance is your weapon, and not every weapon is yours. There are lots of stance that I teach on. It depends on where your alignment is. If you are lined up in an odd technique, which is for me 1, 3, a 5, a 7, a wide 9, depending on what your alignment is, will determine the stance you're in. They're talking about the run game. Depending on if you are in a, like an even technique where you are head up over the offensive lineman and you have 2 gap responsibility, well, then maybe you may want to go to more of a neutral stance because you don't know where that offensive lineman is going to go. You can read your pre's and attack your keys, but you don't know if your first step has to be left or right. And so now, being in a stagger stance may not be the best thing for you if you are playing an even technique. That defensive lineman needs to understand that. He can't just keep getting in a slight stagger, even though he's in an even technique or an odd technique or inside technique, because it may not benefit him. He can't keep getting in a left-hand stance, even though his left-hand stance actually puts him in the gap versus allowing him to attack the man. You have a man hand stance and you have a gap hand stance. And there are reasons why you get in them both. If I want to attack the man, then I get in a man hand stance. If I want to step to the gap because I have a gap responsibility or my coach wants me to penetrate, then I may not want to step to the man if I want to penetrate the gap. I may want to be in a gap hand stance so that therefore I can attack the gap right away and get to the hip of the offensive lineman. There are reasons why we get in the stances we get in. There's a reason why. And when you get a defensive lineman that lines up at the line of scrimmage and he gets into his stance and he knows exactly what he has to do and exactly what he has to accomplish and he knows his objective in that play, he knows what the call is, where he has to go and what he has to do. and you watch that young man make a smart decision or young woman to change their stance based on what they need to do. Have you ever seen a defensive lineman in the NFL and you watch him get into a certain stance, all of a sudden he changes his stance? Do you know how much that confuses most offensive linemen? I said most, not all. You know how much that confuses most offensive linemen that knows what they're looking for, to see a defensive lineman get into a certain stance and all of a sudden he changes it and adjusts it? He knows what the heck he's doing. And that's when you have a defensive lineman that is at the line of scrimmage that's been taught properly, that they've been taught the W's and the H of the game in the trenches, and you see them being strategic at the line of scrimmage. That's when you begin to see great things happen, because this young man or young woman at the line of scrimmage is not guessing. They're not hoping what they do works. They know exactly what they're doing, and they know exactly how to do it. Now we're training the next generation of defensive linemen that are not just being formal. They're not just formulating. They're not just imitating at the line of scrimmage. They are being strategic. They know exactly what they want to do, and they know exactly how they're going to do what they want to do. They are dictators at the line of scrimmage, and what's going to happen is going to be at their command, starting with their stance. Now we're talking. And if you just tell a young man that there's a one-size-fit-all technique to being a great defensive lineman, but yet his head don't fit in that hat, we got a problem. Because eventually they will begin to identify that the hat that they got on does not fit. And all of a sudden, they're not being productive at the line of scrimmage, but they don't have another answer. And they figure that the answer that they were given, because there's a one-size-fit-all way of training a defensive lineman, that the answer that they have is not the answer. All of a sudden, they are failures in their eyes. They can't be great. They can't succeed because they were told that there was only one way. Now, some coaches may say, well, I didn't tell them that there was only one way. We are telling them that when we only teach them one way. When we only teach a lineman or a pass rusher or a run stopper at the line of scrimmage that there is only one way, to me, that's where we mess up. Why? Because there aren't only one defensive lineman. There isn't only one kind of defensive lineman. There isn't only one style of play at the line of scrimmage. We all know, we watch TV, we watch college football, we watch NFL, we watch our high school athletes, and we see guys making plays in their own way, but they're not all the same. So then how can you take that athlete, that defensive lineman, and mold him in which the game he's playing? It's not a one-size-fit-all type of player out there, which means there is not a one-size-fit-all scheme. The best thing you can do is break this thing down into programs and break it down into levels and let this athlete know who he is or who she is at the line of scrimmage and develop them to be the best dog that they can be at the line of scrimmage. There is more than one way to be successful at the line of scrimmage. The optimal defensive line training system provides the fundamentals and provides the order, and which I believe is one of the best orders that you can take to truly see your lineman develop. It's going to pay off for you come August. We in January. What's the rush? Why are we working on pass rush moves and LAs and long arms and spins? Now, unless you're at that point where your athlete has mastered these other levels, go for it. But for me, this is the opportunity that if that athlete does not know level 1 through 3, or for pass rush level 1 through 5, this is the time to really dive deep into that level to make sure that they are truly developing. Go back and look at film and identify, why is it that there were times where we were not successful on the pass rush? Why were we not productive at the line of scrimmage on the run? There is a reason why. If we dig deep enough, we'll find that at this level, we were not productive because. Now, here's the opportunity to now create a curriculum for your dogs in the trenches and develop a system that will identify the idiosyncrasies in their game and make sure that there aren't any. This is what we should be doing. Are you basing your training off of the analysis of the athlete? Have you done a proper analysis and you've looked at their game to identify what they need. It's like going to the doctor. You go to the doctor and they check your vitals. They look at your medical history. They ask you all of these questions so that they know how to move forward. And then once they check your vitals and all those things, vitals, right? The things that are very important for them to identify, vital. Once they check your vitals and identify where you have some needs, then you go to see the actual doctor. And when a doctor takes a deeper look at you and they identify even more so what's wrong with you, watch this, then they have a prescription. The prescription is based off of the analysis. The prescription is based off the tests that were taken, the medical history records that they carefully comb through to identify what this patient needs. You can't prescribe to me something and you have not checked my vitals. You can't say, I'm going to guess that the reason why you have a cold is because of X, Y, and Z. So therefore, I'm going to prescribe this medication for you without having checked your vitals, without looking at any deficiency in this vitamin or that vitamin. I'm just going to go ahead and take a guess here and say that you need to take this medicine. Go ahead and take this medicine and let me know how this works for you. That's not right, because now we're guessing as coaches. Now, I'm not saying all coaches do this. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that there is a need to make sure that every athlete in the offseason, that there has been a proper analysis done. Vitals have been checked. The medical game history has been identified. And when we look at the film and we watch the steps they took, what they did with their hands, what caused them to freeze, what caused them to not make good decisions, and when we look at that, that's when, as a trainer, as a defensive line coach, we can begin to say, here is the prescription. This is exactly what you need, and this is what I am prescribing because of what I saw. The reason why, son, that you weren't playing football until you took 2 steps was because you didn't have the proper stance. You had the wrong hand up, you had the wrong foot up, you was in the right stance, but you was in the wrong place. If only you would have slid over a little bit. If only you would have adjusted your alignment in this pass rush, how much it would have benefited you to do so in this particular scenario. So now we have to teach you the game, the art of rushing, the art of playing the line of scrimmage. This is what the offseason is for, but it takes some work. It takes some work to actually check the vitals of these athletes to identify what the prescription needs to be. Yes, there is an order to offseason training, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. But when you see these athletes develop at the line of scrimmage and you watch them play the game, every defensive lineman that has played defensive line knows that when you put your hands in the dirt, sometimes a lot of things goes through your mind. And the one thing that goes through your mind is, what should I do? How should I do it? And you're trying to figure out the best approach. And the only thing you can fight with is what you've been taught. You fight with what you are taught. And if you weren't taught anything, you don't have many weapons. And that's the truth. We equip our defensive linemen at the line of scrimmage, our pass rushers, we equip them with education. We equip their bodies with drills because drills develop skills. We are equipping them. But we want them to outsmart. We want them to outsmart their opponent. We want them to outsmart their opposition, not just be stronger, not just be quicker, not just be faster, not just to outskill the opposition. We want them to outsmart them. Sometimes things can look so easy for these guys on a professional level because they've done so many things prior to that play to set themselves up for success because they outsmarted their opposition. The pass rush is not an instant thing. It's not something you put in a microwave and you mash 2 minutes, and in 2 minutes you get what you want. A special pass rusher, a special defensive lineman at the line of scrimmage is somebody who is patient, somebody who is strategic, someone who knows how to play the game of chess or checkers to set themselves up for success, that you may have to sacrifice here for there. It's a long-term commitment. It's a 4-quarter game. Aaron Donald right now is leading the league in sacks with about 20 and a half sacks. Think about this for a second. 20 and a half sacks is a lot of sacks for the NFL. It's a lot of sacks for any level, especially the NFL, especially people knowing who you are and getting double teamed, sometimes triple teamed, and yet you still come up with 20 and a half sacks in the regular season. I'm not even talking postseason. I'm talking regular season. But let me explain something to you. I'm asking you this question. How many pass rushers do you think Aaron Donald had in one game? Now, you probably can Google that and look that up. My guess is going to be probably 30 plus. Again, I know that depends on the team he's playing, but nowadays, you got to be balanced. You're passing the ball at least 30 plus times. That might be a low number. I'm just using that number as an example. At least 30 plus times. 40 sometimes even 50, depends on the style of offense. So think about this for a second. If Aaron Donald rushed the passer 30, let's just say 30 times a game, but yet he may come out of that game with 1 sack or 2 sacks. Sometimes he may not come out with any sack at all. What kind of mentality do you have to rush that many times and come out with 1 sack? Do our athletes have the patience and the skill to set themselves up for success? To take 28 plays, 28 rushes, maybe, 10 or 15 or 5 rushes to set themselves up for that sack. If you got 1 sack a game, that's huge on any level. But are we strategic enough and smart enough to know what we're doing at the line of scrimmage to set ourselves up for success? This, to me, is what the offseason is for. To make them not only strong and fast and quick and skillful with their hands, hips, and feet mechanics, to get them to be really strategic at the line of scrimmage. Yes, that's what the offseason is for, but it is also to mold and shape and correct and to create a curriculum for them that's going to develop them the right way. With the optimal defensive line training system, it puts things in order that I think is necessary to make sure that as you're developing your athlete, you have something to go to make sure that you're developing them the right way, as opposed to jumping right into, certain things, and yet their feet mechanics are not there. Their hip mechanics are not there. They don't know what the pass rush leverage is. They don't know what feet leverage is speaking to. To me, there's just an order. And to me, that's important. So I'm very excited about this offseason because I'm 1,000% sure that some lives are going to be changed this offseason. Lives are going to be changed because athletes are going to be trained the right way, in the right order. I'm confident about that. To me, it changes a life when an athlete knows that they are being taught and trained the right way. When they begin to see themselves progress, it does a number on their confidence. It does a number on their psyche. It does a number on their personality. It does a number on who they are now realizing they are, because they know it. And even though that athlete may not know all they need to know, but they know from that session, they know that from what they've been taught in that first session and that first analysis, they know at that moment, my goodness, there's a lot that I just learned and there's a lot more that I need to learn, but I'm ready for this long road. Now I realize that I'm actually on a track. It is exciting when you see an athlete realize, yes, I may be at level 1 now that I really realize what it really takes to be great, but I'm excited that I'm on a level, because level 1 means level 2 and level 2 means level 3. And level 3 means level 4. And level 4 means I've made progress from level 1. Athletes need to know, where was I and where am I? Athletes need to know, where am I and where am I going to go? You're talking about changing a life. You're talking about that athlete being extremely confident that they just went through a system of change. The first step to change is change. Too many people, and this used to be me as well, I'm putting me in this too, expected change without change. Wanted tons of change, but didn't change a thing. If we keep getting the same results, and I've spoken to defensive line coaches and coordinators that just felt like their defensive line did not put out. Well, what change have we made as coaches to ensure that their defensive linemen would change? A good teacher will always make a good student. And to me, that's very important. Yes, we're changing live this offseason. We're talking big things at Big Dog Trench Talk. We're talking big things at BigDogFootball.com. What am I talking about? Because big things are going to happen with my big dogs this year. And I'm talking about all those a part of the Big Dog community. All those out there training the right way. All those that are out there working with excellent, great defensive line coaches that are putting them through a system to ensure their progress. That's what I'm talking about. We're going to see some big things happen this year. And I love seeing it. I love seeing a kid go from 2 sacks to 12 sacks. I love seeing an athlete go from, being second string to being defensive player of the year. And I've seen that. I've seen guys develop, and I've worked with guys that develop from being the guy that was good to the guy that was great, to the guy that was recognized by his conference on that level that he was the best defensive player in the conference or on the whole level, in the whole system. That's an excellent thing. And that's the confidence I'm talking about, because they know that nobody outworked them, and they know that they were taught what they needed to be taught. Your dogs know. Your dogs know when they're being trained the right way, and it means the world to them, and it changes their psyche completely. You can't tell him or her anything when they put their hands in the dirt, knowing that they've been through a proper system. And that's why I'm super excited about 2019, because great things are already happening. Guys are getting better every single day they put their hands in the dirt, because they're being put through a system that's going to make sure and guarantee their progress. That's what I'm talking about. So we're excited about the website. Go to BigDogFootball.com. That's BigDawg.com. Make sure you type in www.bigdawg.com. We got some big things there. We've actually taken the time to develop and create this system, the optimal defensive line training system that we know you're going to greatly benefit from. Go ahead, go to the site, check it out, subscribe, and join the Big Dog Football community. I'm telling you, tons of great things. My plan is that there's going to be a series of our podcasts that talk us through this system. And that's what I think is going to be awesome about it, is that the podcasts are going to couple with the optimal defensive line training system. And so when you take these detailed talk-throughs, and today was just pretty much an introduction to what I think is important, which is to have some kind of system that your defensive linemen go through. But as we continue to talk through this series of what an offseason should look like for a defensive lineman, what is the proper system a defensive lineman should go through in the offseason, when you take these detailed podcasts or talk-throughs and you couple them with the optimal defensive line training system on my website, it's going to be huge for the development of that lineman. So as again, I might be a little biased, but I think that BigDogFootball.com has some of the best D-line content on site. I'm telling you. All right, Big Dog. We got a lot coming. A lot coming. Stay tuned, Big Dog. You know what time it is. It's time to strap up, cleat up, put them hands in the dirt, and it's time to go to work. It's time to eat. It's time to get better, big dog. It's off season.
Work.
Let's go to work.
Work. Work. Work. Work. Work. Let's work.